Hey guys, my last video was well liked, so I decided to make a continuation, Refold Roadmap to True Fluency, and in this episode, Stage 2 will take the spotlight. I'm doing Stage 2's explanation through this medium to clear up any confusion or to simply make clear any fog in Refold's website of explanations and definitions. I will go in ordered sections of Stage 2 right until I explain the different levels of comprehension and what it takes to graduate from Stage 2 to Stage 3. So watch until the end to fully grasp the Refold method. The last video, Refold Guide, left you off Stage 1. But how do you know if you're ready to climb to the next branch called Stage 2? To move from Stage 1 to Stage 2, you need to be comfortable in the writing system and spelling rules that make certain phonological sounds, as well as being comfortable to not understand or to understand your target language. You would also need to know the 1000 most common words and get them sorted on Anki. Note that this is not a set in stone hard line, but good principles to know where the general sense of Stage 1 and Stage 2 territories are at. All the relevant information on how to do that is in that video, so if you didn't watch it, I suggest you to check it out. Stage 2 is when the actual language learning begins. You have learned the most essential common words through Anki as well as learned your target language's writing system and basic grammar. You have a very basic comprehension, and in Stage 2 you'll try to level this up. You will try to develop complete comprehension in this stage by strategically selecting your immersion material tailored to your preferences, goals, and level. This is best explained by Nathaniel Drew here.
And there's a level of personalization that's going on here, in that top 10% of words that is used by any given person is going to be a reflection of how they think and their vocabulary and their life and their interests.
Like the previous stage, Stage 2 is divided into 3 components, all named in their very creative names: Stage 2A, Stage 2B, and Stage 2C. Let's go in order and in detail. Stage 2A, overcoming the curve. When you started to immerse in Stage 1, you barely understood your target language. That's normal. All native speakers, including yourself, had no experience with any language when they were babies. If that wasn't the case, babies would not have been born screaming, but rather quoting nihilistic quotes on how their births was a mistake. Comprehension in new language has a big learning curve. If you ever went to school, you probably learned of the exponential function, where everything starts frustratingly slow, but then you gain momentum and picking up a word becomes easier. But if your language learning curve graph looks like a logarithmic function straight away, then you must take a IQ test ASAP, since you might get a Guinness World Record title called Genius of Geniuses. Okay, jokes aside, a strategy to make that exponential function's threshold lower, meaning that you start to increase exponentially faster, is to pick up what is called a domain, and sticking to it until you drank all of its juice. To better understand what a domain is, let's look at an analogy of the stock market. You don't want to buy all the stocks at Nasdaq, since you won't be able to keep track of the thousands of companies that will certainly lead to a loss of all your portfolio money. Instead, you want to get to know one trustworthy company, be acquainted with it, with their products, their staff, and so on. Once you are confident that this company has a bright future, perhaps then you invest and then expand your portfolio to other researched companies. This is exactly what a domain is in terms of languages. Just learning a language's vocabulary haphazardly will be very inefficient. English has over 150,000 unique words, and many of them you'll probably see used once a decade in a newspaper, unless you read, research papers or complicated poetry on the regular. So instead of randomly finding words from anywhere, you want to stick to one side of the language. Get to know the company before investing. For example, the TV show House MD will have a lot of medical terms, as well as its own set of commonly used vocab words. The Harry Potter series will include their own set of vocab words, which would also include fantastical words like troll, poltergeist, wand, and avacadabra. The common language is the common words of the target language that are used in any given domain. Of course, this includes conjunctions, prepositions, popular articles, and pronouns, and so on. So pick a domain and try to master it. This will make your language learning journey easier and more fun. For example, when I was learning German, I initially was watching TV shows that are defined as slice of life, where there was a simple, delicate list of words regularly used in a daily life. I didn't need to know the words for astronomy, confusion matrix, dimensionality, well, you get the point. So as you progress through the substages of stage 2, you will immerse yourself in different TV shows, movies, and books, and each of these will increase the size of the domain that you're trying to master. Make your domain initially small and pay attention that you're not going too wide or hopping between domains. Narrow your focus. There's also another way to hack your way in knowing your desired language. For example, I use the technique in which you watch TV shows that you've already seen in your native language. Because you know the plot of the film and all the important parts of it, it will be easier for you to follow the show in your target language. Like, if you're in a scene where the conversation between two people is blurry to you, but you remember that they were speaking about going to school, for example, when you watch the same show in English. Then perhaps you'll pick out a new word in the situation, maybe the word for school. A reminder that the goal of stage 2 is to bring you from level 0 comprehension to near perfection, so maybe a level 5 or 6. I will talk about the levels of comprehension at the end of the video, so make sure to keep watching until then. Immersion should be ideally done on the content that is enjoyable, comprehensible, not too easy or not too hard, and language dense. So if your movie has a lot of action, but the only dialogue is the regret of killing some dude at the end of the movie, then try to pick another film. At this stage, basic sentence mining should also be done. At this point, you are probably adding picture word cards in Anki or single word in translation cards. Now you level up. Congrats! Now you can do cards with the note type one target sentence while immersing. I already made a video on this and I suggest you to check it out. I show how to do basic sentence mining while using the latest tools and methods, so check it out. Here are a few guidelines for making your Anki sentence cards. 1. Don't make multiple cards for the same meaning of the same word. 2. If a word has multiple meanings, then use a separate sentence card for the different meanings, since the word in isolation is not enough to differentiate the meaning. 3. For each word you learn, choose the card format you think will help you learn it the best. You can transition a card from one format to another at any point in a card's life. 4. Be careful not to put additional clues and context, example images, in front of cards, as this can lead to creating memories that are reliant on that additional information. This makes it less likely that you will understand the target word when you come across it in your immersion. 5. Having a picture on the back can help create stronger memories. It's especially useful to have a picture for cards where the target word is a noun. In these cases, a picture can be more helpful than a definition. As cliché, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Move to stage 2B when you think that you can recognize 50% of the words being used in your immersion, show, movie, or book. That doesn't mean that you understand or know these words, only that you get the sense that you've seen or heard them before. It is also good to occasionally understand entire sentences and to follow the plot points of the story, although the details may be a mystery. Stage 2B, expanding your domain. Stage 2B should only begin once you can somewhat comprehend easier media. Once this is achieved, you can increase the difficulty of your active immersion a bit. By increasing difficulty, I don't mean increasing the difficulty of context. You should still have visual media with a narrative structure in your immersion. Stay within a domain that you've already been familiarized with. That said, prioritize your enjoyment over strictly keeping to one domain. If you want to consume content in a different domain, then go for it. Just be aware that there will be less overlap and you won't be as familiar with the language used, which will make the content more difficult. By the end of stage 2B, you should be intensively immersing with content aimed at adults. Shows for children and adolescents may still be used for free flow immersion because they will help solidify and acquire the knowledge you've obtained. Don't pursue difficult domains yet. Try to keep things easy. Slice of life will always be easier than politics or fantasy. Dubbed content is artificially simplified, so that may also help you. By the end of stage 2, you want to be only using native content for your intensive immersion. This will allow you to become familiar with your target language's culture and how natives actually speak. For example, what idioms they use and what is their sense of humor. If you want, you can start with reading. Your only immersion experience was mainly through extensive visual supported media like films and shows. Comics has also a visual aspect, and thus increases the context a bit. I suggest when starting with reading to try to read your favorite comics. I'll link in the description links to websites that offer the best digital comic book readers, as well as ShareX, which is a tool to extract text from images. It is useful for making sentence cards from those image books. Sentence mining at this point could be more automated to make more time for sentence mining. Some tools for this are linked in the description, as well as included in my video about sentence mining. These tools are Subs2SRS, Migaku browser extension, Morphman, and my Auto 1T sentence minor, which I made a video on. I'll make a future video in more depth on the various Anki sentence card types that could be added to your repertoire, but for the time being, I recommend to watch Matt vs. Japan's excellent video on the subject. Stage 2C, Mastering Comprehension. In Stage 2B, you developed a decent level of comprehension across a wide range of content. To get to near perfect comprehension, you need to refocus your energy and shrink your first domain to a very narrow subset of the language. In Stage 2C, you will focus your energy on slice of life TV until you've mastered this domain. Before you move on, Stage 3, you can also practice listening to pure audio, meaning no video or subtitles. This will increase your listening comprehension. Throughout Stage 2, you've been building up your reading comprehension ability. Reading novels would be the next logical step, but literature is surprisingly difficult and not a requirement for speaking. If you want to jump to reading novels anyway, I will make a video on tackling novels. For me personally, all I do is read novels and non-fiction books, or Sachbücher as you say in German. I'll make a video on my progress and how I read in German. That video will also have information that applies to all languages, so don't worry. Here, you should also try to do a monolingual transition, where the definitions given in your Anki sentence cards are in your target language. Of course, many of you who are still not there yet would think this is insane, but I thought the same way, and yet I somehow did do the transition without any hiccups. Matt vs. Japan has a great video on the monolingual transition, and I'll perhaps make a video with more detail later as well. You are ready to move to Stage 3 when you can watch a native TV show geared towards adults without subtitles and fully understanding it. Levels of comprehension. As I promised, here are the levels of comprehension as mentioned on the Refold website, linked in the description. As you know, the idea of domains, it is easy to understand that comprehension depends on how much experience you have had in each domain. I may be good at slice of life, but if I never read Tolkien's fantasy, I would have a hard time reading Lord of the Rings, even though I know my target language to some degree. Different domains use different words apart from the common language that overlaps any domain. Here are the levels from Refold. Level 1, nothing. You've just started to immerse and the language is completely gibberish. Level 1, something. The language is still mostly gibberish, but it has started to look or sound familiar. You've gained the ability to pick out occasional words. You still have no idea what is talked about. Level 3, gist. You can recognize at least half of the words being used, and it's not uncommon for you to fully understand entire sentences. You're able to follow along with most of the main ideas that are expressed, but many smaller details are lost. Level 4, story. You can follow along the majority of the ideas being expressed, but some details are lost here and there. You rely heavily on contextual inference to determine what was said when you can't make out all of the words. When you're not able to understand something, you often can't tell why you weren't able to understand. Level 5, comfortable. You can understand close to everything, but some subtle nuances are lost. You have no trouble following along with everything that's said, but some of the cleverness or craftsmanship of a speaker or writer may go unnoticed. When you don't understand something, you can usually identify the cause and clarify your understanding by looking up what you missed. At this level, there is still significant effort associated with the act of comprehending the language. Level 6, automatic. You can effortlessly understand virtually everything. Virtually no details are lost. You can fully pick up the subtlest levels of nuance. This is the experience that native speakers have when consuming content they're familiar with. But why trust me? Do I even have experience learning a language? Sure I do. I'm currently learning German, and I just recently passed my first year, initially starting on Anki on my own, but then applying the mass immersion approach, which is now Refold. Check out this video where I explain my own 1-year progress with this method. There's also a chance that this video was already seen by my kind viewer. Then I asked YouTube to suggest the best possible video for you, based on your interests. Test whether or not YouTube is correct in thinking that this video right here will also be enjoyed by my kind viewer. You've seen this long into this video. It's only right to subscribe at this point.